Members, just remind you, far be it from me to curtail any debate, but if you don't want to come back tomorrow, you might want to keep your comments brief. Okay, members, we're now an open committee again, and we'll refer back to item 11, which is the call-in. I'm going to pass to Philip.
Thank you, Mayor. Members, this report deals with call-in of Council item SC 29 of 26. So you'll recall, members, that at the special council meeting on the 29th of January 2026, it was proposed and seconded that members endorse the updated progress report and note the interdependencies of the projects herein in the Council's capital programme, with the exception of the proposed DCSDC match funding of £100,000 for the Stevenson's Play Park. Proposal was passed, members, and on the 10th of February 2026, a request was received that the decision be reconsidered pursuant to sections 41(1)A and 41(1)B of the Local Government Act Northern Ireland 2014. Members, a copy of the requisition is appended to the report. Members, as you're aware, the call-ins are dealt with under Council's Standing Order 21, call-in admissibility being dealt with under Standing Order 21.2. The various points in relation to admissibility were met in relation to it, and in relation to Standing Order 21.23, a section 41(1)B call-in requires that must state the community that would be affected and the nature and extent of the disproportionate adverse impact. Members, call-in under section 41(1)A is dealt with under Standing Order 21.4, and essentially where such a call-in is received, members, those who supported the call-in or a member on their behalf will be invited to address the meeting. They will have voting rights, and having considered the matter, the Council may refer the decision for further consideration by a committee, may support the decision or may overturn the decision. Members, those are the options that are available to you in relation to the call-in under section 41(1)A. In relation to call-in under section 41(1)B, the Chief Executive is obliged to obtain the opinion of a practising solicitor or barrister, and the Chief Executive has asked me to obtain Council's opinion in relation to that call-in. Members, just to say in relation to that I have considered the matter with Council, and they have advised that you will be aware, members, of the ongoing judicial review in relation to which this Council is a notice party involving call-in under section 41(1)B, which is currently awaiting judgment. Council would not be in a position to provide an opinion in relation to call-in under section 41(1)B until such time as that judgment is received. Currently, we do not have an indication as to when that judgment will be received. Members, the legal, financial, HR improvement rights, etc. are set out in the report. And the recommendations within the report, therefore, members, are that you consider the call-in under section 41(1)A and either A, refer the decision for further consideration by a committee, or B, support the decision, or C, overturn the decision. And in relation to the call-in under section 41(1)B, that you simply note the contents of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip, for that report. Members, any member wish to comment or make a proposal on the recommendations? Councillor or Alderman McMorris.
Is it right that I come in and, at this stage?
Yeah, the members who have signed the call-in have the right to speak first on it. So go ahead, Alderman.
Okay, thanks for that. And I know you said to be quick, but I want to extend on your indulgence that this is a really, really important issue, and it's not our intention to hold any thing up, do you know what I mean? And certainly we want to see delivery, so it's not our intention to do that. However, we have grave concerns. Now, first of all, I'm going to lay out a bit of the context of why we have got to where we are, and I'm going to refer to some of the comments that was made in regards to the reasons why they made the decision to extract the ask for Stevenson's Park. So I'm just going to go back to you know, the fact that because we have already numerous times it has been said that, you know, it didn't align with council's priorities. But I just wanted to clarify that each DEA was allowed to put a park forward for inclusion under community projects. Ross Downey Park had been the priority list, on the priority list, and prior to this here, we had meetings in order to make it spade ready. Ross Downey has a complete derelict park, with the play equipment being removed in 2019. It was the lowest scored in all of the parks within the city and district, with absolutely no play value to even score. So due to this, it was evident that Ross Downey should have been the priority for the Waterside and was the priority for us. However, people in this chamber would not agree with that priority and insisted that Ross Downey could go through, but only if Currynearn also went through. So the reasons there was 2 play parks put through was not the doing of my party, but the doing of others. At no stage when we were putting through the play park priorities on the Waterside were we informed that our decision would have an impact on the Pride of Place programme funding, and as a result, the priorities of the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership would ultimately be impacted. Equally, when the Towns Fund was confirmed at the beginning, I was not aware that there would be a match funding request. It is also obvious that all the DEAs were not prepared for this, as the only projects that were put forward with match funding was the, sorry, I dropped my pages, now they're all. Yeah, so they were put forward with match funding, and the only one that was put forward was the city centre capital project, where the ask put forward was the Austins for 2 million, and 9 million was submitted by the Inner City Trust. And the other project that had match funding was the one in for the Irish student accommodation. And I can't pronounce the name, but 500,000 was put forward for that. So all non-council projects, hence there was no match funding met. And I'm just going to capitalise on what them were again. So you had Foylside, which was the Ballymagorty and Hazelbank multi-purpose community centre. So the Pride of Place contribution was 1,226,167, and there was a leverage match funding request of 980,000 from this council. Ballyairnet Local Group Partnership, the projects that was selected by Pride of Place was the Resource Centre, and the contribution from Pride of Place was 1,075,000, and that leverage funding was to be confirmed for that project. And basically, Rachel had confirmed at the last meeting that there was a lot of asks under that particular DEA, but it was the Pride of Place that actually took a resource centre forward. Under the Waterside Local Growth Partnership, Currynearn and Stevens's Park went through as a joint project. Pride of Place gave 1.1 million, and there was a leverage funding the council had committed of 522,000 towards Currynearn and Stevens's Park, and there was going to be approach to other funders. Now I'm taking that as on the actual papers that we received. So the Mirror Local Growth Partnership, they deferred the submission of projects until the next investment period of 2030 to 2033, as they had indicated that they were keen to progress with the redevelopment of Craig Shops, dereliction of the Fountain Estate, and redevelopment of Pilot Row. These priorities haven't been worked up, hence the reason for deferral, but they were allocated 100,000 for capacity building from Pride of Place to get them ready. It's important to note that the capital review meeting, it was agreed that the 100,000 would go forward in order to ensure that Tully Alley had match funding at people's insistence. Now, in my opinion, this was a joint project, and therefore the fact that there was already 522,000 match funding already secured, although this was initially secured for Carinairn, because of the pressures already put in council to put 2 play parks forward within the community projects. But 522,000 was more than 25%, which is the threshold that seems to be put forward for the ask. Therefore, Pride of Place should have accepted that adequate match funding was already secured to meet the priorities of the Waterside Local Growth Partnership. So at the meeting, basically we had several councillors made comment on that, stating the reasons why they went forward to exclude it. So Councillor Duffy confirmed that she sits on the Pride of Place board and was part of the decision-making process. Sandra confirmed that there was an in-depth discussion regarding prioritisation and looking at what would make a difference within the local group partnerships. So there's no real argument. She says there was no real argument what was put forward, but there was one contentious issue, and that was around the Waterside area, as there was conversations around the growth partnership why the growth partnership was able to bring forward Carinairn Park, and we had agreed that. So basically, Sandra said that they had agreed that on the Pride of Place board. Right. So following other discussions, which is her words in the background, Waterside Local Growth Partnership brought forward Stevenson Park, and we agreed that this could not be detrimental to Carinairn. Through conversations with a wider team and wider council, there are some concerns, as obviously we already looked at the capital projects and we have already prioritised the play parks and agreed that each DEA would have the opportunity to deliver a play park. I've already mentioned that, and other parties insisted that there was 2 play parks go through from the Waterside, which is fair enough. We never ever objected to that. As far as I'm concerned, the more play parks that go forward, the better. But I would like it confirmed if there was any criteria set by Pride of Place that the local growth partnerships weren't allowed to put forward additional play parks as their priority, as it didn't align with council priorities. It seems strange that all the asks that have come forward from other local growth partnerships, that the priorities were curtailed as they didn't align with council priorities. In fact, some of the projects put forward weren't even on the capital review list, so weren't even a council priority. But as I have previously stated, that is okay, as the fund wasn't set out to be aligned to council projects, but they were to be aligned to the local growth partnerships prioritised projects, which is why we have seen a diverse list of asks. So Councillor Duffy also mentioned that other areas were in need of play parks and specifically mentioned Culmore. I have to stress that Culmore could have been a priority for that DEA, and goodness knows it could have even been on their extensive list, but it was the Pride of Place board, which Sandra sits on, that agreed that the resource centre would go forward. Therefore, Culmore not getting a play park was a decision of either the local growth partnership for not including it within the Pride of Place priorities, or the DEA didn't prioritise it. I don't know the information, but it certainly wasn't us. I also have to ask why Tully Alley should be detrimented because of the decision making of other DEAs, as there seems to be a great emphasis in Tully Alley shouldn't get, because it wasn't fair that the Waterside would get 3 parks. So we need to clarify if the additional park that the Waterside requested, was that not part of the criteria? Was there an exclusion that the DEAs couldn't put forward another play park when every other DEA had the open opportunity to put through their priorities without any exclusions or hindrance? So at no stage were we advised that play parks could not be a priority for the Waterside, as they weren't allowed a 3rd park. Boyleside getting match funding of 980,000 for match funding for the Ballymagorty Hazelbank Community Centre, nor was there any unease. So there was no unease at 980,000 being allocated
Gonna have
towards
to ask you to-
Ballymagorty
Please.
and Hazelbank. Sorry, I asked for your indulgence on it.
Well, I think you've indulged.
I'm not going to speak, Mayor. Can
You could try and wrap up,
Yeah.
please.
So, sorry, you've lost my chain of thought. Nor was there any unease that Triax was awarded 100,000 from Pride of Place to work up their priorities from the Capacity Building Fund. Can I also ask if there was any criteria that the priorities couldn't be changed before final submission? Councillor Mooney has comments, whereas the Play Park review, there was 2 picks, Ross Downey and Curry Nearn, and he doesn't understand where Tully Alley came into the equation. Can I be clear that Tully Alley came into the equation as a priority of the Waterside Local Growth Partnership, and I have already covered our reasons for the Council's priorities, and that at no stage was there criteria set that an additional play park couldn't be a priority because it needed to be aligned to Council priorities. Sean also stated that each DEA had already had their 2 picks, but if there was a third one, every other DEA would be looking for that option. So can I clarify that each DEA had that option to prioritise another play park, but it was their decision to opt for other priorities, or was it their Pride of Place decision to take forward other projects? Peace funding, which we didn't get, but at this stage, Curnearn is ready to go. This is Sean's words. I have to confirm that Tully Alley is also ready to go, and I have already outlined at the last meeting the good relations impact of one interface area receiving 1.9 million and the other interface of Tully Alley receiving nothing. This is the exact reason the application was amended to include Tully Alley as a joint project, and it was the decision of this council to
I'm
exclude
gonna have to
Tully
ask you
Alley.
to bring your comments to a close. Maybe some of the other speakers might cover some of the points you've missed out, but please.
I just have a couple of pages that. Sorry, I'm sorry, but this is really, really an important
I
issue.
understand that, and I
You know,
have
and
indulged, you've spoken
Do you know
there
what?
for maybe 10
Nobody else
minutes.
was curtailed in the length of time. I mean, Councillor Harkin, I don't know many times.
I've asked you a
I've
couple of
spoken
times,
this week.
Deputy Mayor,
But anyway,
please bring your comments to a close. I'll ask you again. Please be brief in your comments.
well, I'll get somebody else to read it if we need to, but so I can't understand why the Waterside Local Growth Partnership was asked to complete an expression of interest. This is Sean's thing, right? If a status quo was already set and they weren't allowed to have a further play park as one of their priorities. I just wanted to go on lastly to Christopher Jackson's comments. So it was agreed with myself that most of my comments of the joint nature of joint facilities in Tully Alley, but elaborated in regards to the play park funding, and that the Waterside DEA got 2 picks due to the unsuccessful Peace Plus bid. This is totally inaccurate, as Ross Downey was the absolute priority, as it had no play value and was in total dereliction. That said, that didn't mean that Tully Alley wasn't a priority. It was, but we were limited to 1 pick, and it had to be Ross Downey for the reasons already stated. Councillor Jackson also went on to say that there was almost a presumption that the 2 priority projects would have been Tully Alley and Currynearn, and that is how he sold it to his team. He also went on to state that it took a lot of persuasion within his team to allow 2 to go forward. Councillor Jackson is clearly admitting that it was his team that allowed the 2 picks to go forward on the Waterside, and this demonstrates to me that the picks weren't solely based on priority, but Sinn Féin's agreement. Councillor Jackson went on to say that it was to his dismay that the Waterside put forward Ross Downey rather than Tully Alley, and that's where the projects were decoupled. But he accepted the rationale that was put forward by the DUP and UUP within the Waterside. Councillor Jackson went on to say that if he hadn't prioritised Ross Downey, if we hadn't prioritised Ross Downey, then the match funding would have been there.
Deputy Mayor.
Can I again highlight that when the play park priorities was put forward through council, there was no information brought forward that decision will automatically dismiss Tully Alley from future funding, and more specifically, the Pride of Place funding. The 2 sets of priorities are totally different, and there was no specification that one had to be aligned to the other.
Deputy,
Councillor-
please bring your remarks to a close.
Do you want to read this, Chelsea?
Does any other member who's signed the call wish to address the meeting?
Yeah, Chelsea.
Chelsea just say the function of the file.
Alderman Cook.
Just read that.
She has both, so she'll.
Thanks, Mayor, for letting me on. So more or less what it is, you know, as a councillor for the Waterside, it was like, I am delighted that Carnegie and Ross Downey or whatever is getting a park. What I would like to just say is, it was never about other areas getting, it was about Tully not getting. Sorry. Like, there was a meeting that happened in Tully, you know, and a lot of the residents, you can understand their frustration, but I think they were happy for Carnegie. Like this is whenever they found out that they were getting awarded, you know, their park and their pitches and whatever, they were delighted for them. But then to hear then that, you know, what they were receiving was absolutely nothing, there's outrage in the community. And I think just as Waterside councillors that we have the right, you know, to call this in. So I think that's more or less where we're at. They deserve it, and it's here for discussion today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other member of those who signed the call in? No, so, sorry. Councillor Middleton, Alderman Middleton.
Thank you. Alderman McMorris asked me to keep reading here. So as stated on the call-in, the reason for the call-in is that the decision was taken without prior or express consultation with the Waterside Local Growth Partnership, and secondly, that Alderman Guy and Hussey's counter-proposal was not properly considered. This council had the ability to defer the decision until these discussions were allowed to take place, but they decided to push ahead and exclude Tully Alley. Council is now looking to determine the first part of our call-in under procedural grounds. Therefore, I urge this council to overturn their decision based on the facts which I have laid before you today. In relation to the second part of the call-in, so the community impact, legal counsel have said they will not provide an opinion while the BCC proceedings are ongoing. Can we therefore clarify that it is not the council's intention to force a vote on this part of the call-in in the absence of legal counsel? And then secondly, to propose that our council seek a separate legal opinion in order to ensure the call-in can be determined in a way in line with standing orders. So well, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and I have Alderman Guy online.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. Look, I just want to say that I'm agreeing with Alderman McMorris about the fact of when the two play parks were chosen in Currynearn and Ross Downey. Now, I made it clear to people in Ross and Tully Alley at the time that I would be back in when we were talking about basically the council setting up this fund, that I would be back in Ross Downey, because Ross Downey was the one that had no play park, no playability. It was the one that was completely removed. And I believe that it should have been, you know, it should never have been allowed to get to that stage, but they were in badly need of a play park for the amount of young people that's around that area. I think one of the last things that Alderman McMorris's colleague done before she left council was proposed the Tully Alley master plan. And I think at the time, possibly Sean or Martin actually added that or Councillor Mooney added that could we add the Currynearn master plan to that as well, which was in the process as well. And it was agreed that both of them should go together. Hence the funding application towards Peace Plus. Now, I always believed when the Drumahoe section was put in for the wooded area below the YM, that would scupper any chance that Currynearn and Tully Alley would have of receiving that Peace Plus money. Hence, I was right. Maybe it wasn't for that reason, but I knew it wasn't going to work whenever that was added. Now, Currynearn now are getting the park. Obviously, Alderman McMorris has put in I was away at the time, and she put in for the a park to be included in Tully Alley. Now, that's only a park, considering what is proposed for Currynearn. And we had that public meeting just there the other week, and everybody was delighted that Curry Nearn was getting the park, and they all waited to hear what Tullyally was going to get. But there was nothing came after, because obviously it had been proposed that council wouldn't go forward with. Now, their worry is because Curry Nearn, the two of them were working together all the time on their master plans. But because Curry Nearn now looks to have this 1.9 million proposal, what happens to Tullyally's master plan? Because if money ever arises again, they'll be saying, oh, well, sure, there's a football pitch here around the corner. I've always believed that there should be a park and a football pitch built between the two so that they both can use it. And maybe it would sort things out there and it would bring the communities closer together. But that's just not practical at the minute. So I think we need a wee bit of consideration here. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think in good faith here, people have to decide that, you know what, it's a request for a park, it's 100,000. We've heard other things. We know there's other things in the pipeline where other communities need help and assistance. And I think it's more in good faith than anything that it would be seen that, we can agree on things like we've disagreed in plenty during the meeting today. I think maybe it's time that maybe we took a step back and realised, you know what, we can make this work for both ends a lot there. Those two divided communities, and maybe it might see some sort of brightness and bring it forward because the two communities do work together, the women's group out there and all, and up in the Perennial Community Centre. But this could sour relationships if it doesn't happen. So thanks, Mayor, for a time, but I would propose that basically it's overturned and we basically get on with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. Members, before I leave the meeting, I know I'd asked the Deputy Mayor, Alderman McMorris, to chair the meeting, but just to let you know that you do have the option, if you don't want to chair the meeting, then you can nominate a party colleague to chair the meeting. So members, I'm very reluctant to leave you, but I have to go. Or sorry, it's a member of Sinn Féin. If you don't want to, it's a member of my own party.
No, I know.
If you don't want to.
I understand
chair-
that, but I'm questioning myself whether it would be appropriate of me to chair this element because of the fact that I'm one of the ones that brought on the call-in. I'm happy to chair, do you know what I mean? But equally, do you know what I mean? I just don't know if there's a declaration of interest or anything. And the fact that we're probably going to be coming back tomorrow anyway, do you know what I mean, at this stage, because I don't think we're going to go through 4 motions in 10 minutes when nobody else has spoken on this issue. So I'd be happy maybe if somebody else from Sinn Féin wanted to chair this part of the meeting and with a continuation tomorrow. I think that's a sensible thing to do. But I mean, if everybody's happy enough, I'm happy to go up there too. But I just think in light of the
It's up
subject.
to yourself, but if you wish a member of Sinn Féin to chair this item and then you resume the following item, you're quite entitled to do that as well.
I think that's a fair thing to do, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll ask my own party to nominate somebody to chair the rest of the meeting.
Well, good. Vera, I'll nominate Councillor Paul Boggs.
Okay.
Okay, members, who else that has signed the call and wishes to speak? Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll be extremely brief. I hope you won't have to call me on time. I signed that call on the basis of seeking an inclusive decision that will be good for community relations. And that's the total basis of this call-in. That's the total basis. And that's what we're asking all in the chamber to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Nobody else on the call-in? Okay, open to anybody else then. Councillor Jackson.
Good Chair, and I know there was a lot of he said, she said through the earlier discussions, and some of it I would wholeheartedly dispute. But it is ironic that, because I'm going to get into it myself, there's, we had a conversation only a matter of hours ago where people objecting to Irish language signs accused this council of regurgitating decisions until they get their own way. And that's exactly what's being proposed here. I want to state an absolute fact, right? Curran is the priority of the waterside councillors. It has been for some time, and Alderman McMorris and all the waterside councillors are fully aware of that. The simple reality is that every single DEA within our council was asked to identify one play park. And DEAs made very difficult decisions to prioritise one. For the community relations piece that's been discussed by the previous speakers, that's the only reason why the waterside was asked to identify two, right? And it came through, we met as councillors and we accepted the arguments that was presented that Ross Downey should be prioritised over Tullyally. But Curran was a given. It is a given, and we will absolutely insist that it's a given, regardless of any attempts to sectarianise play provision within the waterside, because that's what's happening here, and it's disgraceful. Because people can't own up to decisions that they took to prioritise the Ross Downey over Tullyally. Now, there is decisions that are available to the waterside councillors. If people want to revisit the decision to prioritise Ross Downey, we can, and that would provide the match funding for Tullyally. I would be hesitant to do that, given the assurance and the promises that have been given to Ross Downey. But if the DUP or other waterside councillors want to present that option, we are open to discuss anything but in that regard. But going back to the recommendation from the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership, it was supported and endorsed, but it was endorsed with a caveat that the match funding would be explored from external sources. We knew that there was going to be a huge ask, because this proposal, they include Stevenson's Park under the Waterside Neighbourhood Partners ask, was actually was inserted the day before. It was at the 11th hour that this was brought on, and it was hugely unlikely that that level of funding was going to be secured from external forces or sources. But we were, from the neighbourhood partnerships perspective, I supported that when it was put to me, with the caveat that there's no detriment to Curran Play and the Curran Master Plan, which we have been prioritising and working on for many years. So that's the reality, and we made sure that there was, not only at the neighbourhood partnership but at the Pride of Place board, that Curran Master Plan would continue independently of the Stevenson's Park element to it. So whilst the aspiration was there to deliver both, we knew that there wasn't certainty in relation to the match funding, and I haven't heard any examples of what options were explored to secure the match funding. But the funding is there from within the council's investment. Waterside councillors have decided to direct that towards Ross Downey rather than Tullyally. If they want to revisit that decision, we can meet up and discuss it. But we're not going to regurgitate the decisions until we get an outcome that suits some people. And we're certainly not taking the decisions based on sectarian headcounts. We want to take decisions based on addressing the need and putting investment where it's needed most. And Crown Iron certainly ticks that box. But if there's evidence to suggest that we can that there's better options to invest on the Tully rather than Rostoni, I'm open to hearing them. The element and the first element of the call-in, I think it was around the mayor not allowing a proposal to have further discussions. It's my understanding, and the city solicitor can correct me, but the mayor can only take one proposal at a time. And at the time when that proposal was made, there was already a proposal on the floor which had been seconded. So in terms of a procedural issue, I'm at a loss to how we've allowed it to get this far, because there's the mayor can't accept, or a chair of any meeting can't accept multiple proposals at the same time. Otherwise it would be chaos. So from our perspective, in terms of the paper that's presented to us today, our preference is option B, that we support the decision that was previously taken. If others have, I know there's a proposal on the floor, and on that very point, there's been a proposal from Alderman Guy. I hadn't heard it seconded, but I'm certainly making a proposal that we support option B and support the decision that was previously taken. I think that's me, Chair.
Gurmagh Christopher, I'd second them for your proposal, given that the other proposal wasn't seconded by Councillor Duffy. Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. And I should probably start off by saying that I spoke on this at the original meeting last month, but also we spoke on the radio about this as well, myself and Councillor Jackson and Alderman McMorris. But I heard Alderman McMorris's extensive resume of the position that they were coming from. I should say from the outset that my position, I suppose, the position of our group and council is, I'll say from the start that we will be seeking to maintain a status quo as was adopted last month. The real issue that I think that I spoke on the radio was about this issue. Number two, I should actually just maybe work backwards and say that I agree with what Councillor Jackson said, because the idea about the Alderman Guy's proposition, my understanding was that that proposal was on the floor first. So therefore, how this has made into number two on the 41A, obviously that needs probably further exploration. But number one, the first sentence says there was no express or advance consultation. That was my primary point last month and on the radio a week later about this whole scenario, because there was no consultation about this, as we know, as was outlined. I said in the radio that when this was first raised with me from the residents in Curry and Earn, the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership took a decision on the 4th of September, and then suddenly on the 18th of November it was changed. And the whole idea that we're here today without consultation is the points I made previously on 2 occasions about this issue. There was no consultation with me, Councillor Mooney, or Councillor Riley, and I would hesitate to say Councillor Jackson and the late Councillor Deeney in relation to this. I never heard anything about this, about why they were actually brought in, why this was changed, the whole thinking about this, the whole idea about this. I should say the late Councillor Deeney, I should say.
Can I just clarify? Councillor Deeney is still alive and well. I spoke to her yesterday.
I looked at Councillor Hargany went to flat. Come on. Former Councillor Deeney, but note. But going back to what I was saying is, I think probably, and more seriousness, is I'm still at a loss as to where the consultation took place, as to why, how we got here. That was the point being, that was the crucial factor. It was pointed out to me that I didn't go to, or I went very little to the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership meetings, and it was pointed out by Councillor Jackson didn't go at all. And I said, obviously, we all have different commitments and things like that there, and we can't get these meetings. The point is that a decision got there, more to the point, the imperative was for Alderman McMorris or members of our party to come to us and to say, this is what we planned. We didn't go to the meeting. Can you come on board with this? What do you think about this? Can you go back to anybody? Can you talk to us about this? This didn't occur. And that's the imperative about the situation. And now we're sitting on for a reason calling about the lack of a consultation to get there. We don't have any QIA, I understand, under Section 75 under 41A. That's fair enough, so we can't take a decision on that today anyway. I'm recently calling under B, I accept the position because there's an outstanding JR that requires a decision, and we can't get council's opinion on that until that's delivered, so we can't make a decision on that either. But in light of what I hear today, and about the substantive history in relation to how we got here, my view is that there was 2 play parks advanced by Waterside when I came into this council to start. Then there was a subsequent application to Peace Plus, which didn't, which was unsuccessful. And now there's a further application put on to the present iteration called Pride in Place. But that's how we got here. There was no consultation. There was no issue about this. And even afterwards, this column was put in, and there was an opportunity to come around and speak to all our councillors on the Waterside. But that wasn't put forward, and that wasn't advanced. And that's why we're here. So there is a lot, as to what Alderman McMorris has said, that I dispute, and that is in dispute. And that is why we're here today. Whatever the iteration that Alderman McMorris has said is in dispute. So until we come back with an EQIA, which I assume will assess the merits of this matter, and then what we need then is an opinion from council. And once I read those 2 documents, I'll be better informed as to how I will advance, or how our party will advance on this. But as it is at the minute, the SDLP group and council will maintain the status quo as was presented last month. And that's what we will do. And we'll support option B. Thank you for the group leader for letting me know that. But apart from that situation, that is all I have to say at the minute. And the main imperative is that it is in dispute at the moment, the facts. And until there's a satisfactory resolution from those 2 documents I have to see, it will remain in dispute. And that's the situation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Miller, just to be completely clear, can you clarify what option you're supporting again?
Option B.
Okay. Members, Alderman McMorris did speak at length at the start of the meeting, but you did speak before a proposal was made, so therefore I am going to let you back in to speak on the proposal. Very briefly, Alderman McMorris, because we have rehearsed the issues.
I'm basically just going to comment on some of the comments that's been made. Basically, right through this process, I don't know how many times now I have been told that I've been sectarian. At no stage have we tried to block any other project. At no stage do we ever say that Currynearn wasn't to go forward or whatever. We basically have just been putting our case forward in order for Tullyally to be included. So I don't see how that can be like me being sectarian or even sectarianising this head count or whatever it is that they're referring to. So I dispute the very fact that people in this chamber find it necessary to say that I'm being sectarian by my actions. We've also heard that there is an option to reconsider Ross Downey. That is not an option. Absolutely is not an option. Because Ross Downey was put forward as a council priority for a play park as per what the request was at the time, because at that time they were most in need. So there's no rediscussion about that option. And I made it very clear at the last meeting, and Sean says about the consultation. The consultation was done through Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership. That's who was completing the expression of interest, who was completing the applications. I wasn't even aware of the decision that was made that it was Curry Nearing that went forward. I only found that out in an email when I got the minutes of the meeting, because I wasn't able to go because I was in Glasgow at the time. But at the first opportunity, when I seen the decisions, I went and I said to them, I said, look, this is going to be the impact that this could have on this community. And on based on them conversations, Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership, sorry, you're putting me off by smiling at somebody else.
I'm sorry, Alderman McMorris, but if me smiling in another direction is putting you off, I apologise. It's not intended to
This is
put you
very
off.
serious, I'm speaking. But can I just say,
Well, with that in mind, Alderman McMorris, I have now given you 2.5 minutes, so I would ask you to bring your remarks to a close, closer to 3 if you can.
right, okay. Right, so there was a consultation. It was agreed through Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership that Tully Alley would be going under the application as a joint application. Now, whether WNP went under consultation with other Waterside councillors, that's up to them to decide. But it was Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership that changed the application and put the application in. And I've already said when I was presenting earlier on that I wanted clarification from council officers was, were they entitled to do that? Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, if it's a case that we have to like consultate with every single elected member in here and they weren't aware of the content of any consultation that already took place, well, then, do you know what I mean? That was up to them to seek that clarity themselves. And you're on about the options that was explored for match funding. The options was explored, you know, and one of the options was that we put forward at the capital review meeting that there would be an ask of council of 100,000. That was agreed. That was agreed. That's why the 100,000 was in the paper. That's exactly. We were only basically running with the recommendation that was in front of us. It wasn't our decision then to exclude Tully Alley for whatever reason. So, I mean, if we're talking about sectarianism and sectarianising decisions, then people have to answer of why, out of all the proposals, out of £500 million of investment that was announced that day, why was 100,000 the only thing that was excluded from the table? And I'm going to, just the last point that I'm going to, the last point that I'm going to say was, I can't deal with this stress. But anyway, you basically said, you know, I'm going to end there because I'm just exhausted trying to argue this point, and it's clear, do you know what I mean, that it was very evident that when Stevens's Park was excluded, the only PUL project and the whole thing, in my mind, do you know what I mean? The ask was put forward for every other project, every other thing that had implications on rates, that have implications on other projects, do you know what I mean? And to exclude Tully Alley is just blatant in my mind. But anyway, that's my opinion. I know you don't agree with it, but I'm just going to put it on record that that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman McMorris. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. I was just, maybe just out of curiosity and such, I asked the legal department with regards to whatever decision goes forward here today on the retrospective element of 4.1 that's in the report. Does that have a bearing?
Yeah, thank you. So, regardless of what decision is taken here today, this matter does obviously remain subject to call-in under section 41(1)(b), as the report sets out, because there was no opportunity to screen this matter, equality screen this matter in advance of the decision being made or in advance of today's meeting. Officers will take forward an equality screening of the matter if it is if the section 41(1)A call-in proceeds today, officers will take forward an equality screening, and that'll be brought back in due course.
Councillor Gallagher.
Just to follow up, as Philip, you saying that there is a potential for further legal implications if this goes to an external legal opinion? It's in.
The section 41(1)B call-in will still have to proceed at some stage in the future.
It will?
It will.
Right.
Yeah.
Regardless, like.
Okay, Councillor Sandra Duffy.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm really just disappointed that we are here, to be honest, and I feel the need to speak because at the outset, Alderman McMorris name-checked me quite extensively through your notes. So, in terms of the Pride of Place Board, I am on it, and there was a really extensive process that went through in terms of bringing forward the projects from all across the city and the city centre. That process was a fair and open process around our neighbourhood partnerships. At that, there was a panel that had been set up to look at those individual projects and agree which ones would be taken forward. So at that then, there was a pause in terms of the watersides area because the Curry project had been brought forward. But it was my understanding, and Alderman McMorris has actually just confirmed it here now, that she got an email when she was in Glasgow and blah, 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 what happened after that. So the Curry one came forward and that was going to be agreed. But then obviously there was conversations, discussions that went on in the background, and the waterside area one was paused while the other areas came forward. And at that point, I did express my unease with the process, because I believed that there could be no detriment to the Curry project, which was agreed and which was being brought forward. And I understand councillors fighting for their area, and I take my hat off to them for doing it. But what I do take exception to is nearly sectarianising this issue. And I do use that term quite literally in this process, because then at the Capital Review Group, I did again have that conversation with Alderman McMorris and say that I was unhappy with how things were proceeding. And at our last meeting, Alderman McMorris again talked about usings, and usings are getting. So the sectarianisation of our play provision has been done by the DUP. And I believe that the DUP have tried to circumvent the processes of Pride in Place to achieve their aim. And all it is doing now is causing division. I believe that we need play provision right across our council area, but to try and sectarianise it in this way and cause these divisions that are not necessary. We've seen Councillor Jackson has outlined in terms of what the waterside area did around the play provision that we were bringing forward as a council and prioritising that. And Ross Downey was prioritised through that process. And then they prioritised Curry to come through to Pride of Place. That's fair. That's how it should be done. And that's how it was done. But the DUP are now continuing to try and sectarianise this process again, I say fair play to them for coming forward, but don't try and say that this is an unfair decision. It is a completely fair decision that we took, and I stated my unease with it at every step of the process, and Alderman McMorris is aware of that because she was at a meeting of the Capital Review Group where I expressed that to her face. So, you know, this can't have been a shock or a surprise when this was raised in council, and nothing is agreed until it comes in here to this chamber and is agreed by us all. So, you know, that's the process that we're in. This is where we're at. Curry was a priority for the waterside area, and that was fair. And that's all I'm going to say at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I have Councillor Jackson and then Councillor Harkin. Have I anybody else after that at this stage? Councillor Jackson.
No, and just to remind everybody in this chamber of the waterside priorities, and I think the Peace Plus application was referred to a number of times during this discussion. And the Peace Plus application that was made on behalf of the entire council was for Carrinear and Tullyally. That's the priorities of this council. That was the priorities of the waterside, and it was and then it was endorsed by the entire council. Now, and I was just to remind people, that's where the #1 priority was across our council area. Ross Downey didn't come under it until there was a decision to try and take money away from Tullyally, and the people that done that were waterside councillors, and they're the people that signed the call on. That's the reality, and what's happening here is they try and deflect away from decisions that they took because they won't stand up and tell the people of Tullyally of the decisions or what they done. So just to again go back to the Pride of Place selections for the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership. Initially it was Carrinear and Clooney. Now the parameters around the Pride of Place where we needed to bring forward projects that were going to be delivered in years 1 to 3. Clooney wasn't going to be delivered within year 1 to 3. So it was agreed that Clooney was going to be the next batch from year 3 onwards. That's the reality, and that's the reason why the waterside ask had been paused, because Clooney wasn't going to proceed as was. This calling actually creates a very dangerous precedent, because if on that basis, if there's any decisions in terms of investment under the waterside, and if the DUP are going to insist that if Fusions get one, we need one, then it calls into question council's drive for the delivery of the Clooney Master Plan. Because if we're going to start making decisions based on away from objective need and away from due process, and it has to be, you get one, we need one. It's not the right way to do it. It's not the right way for decisions to be taken. It's not going to deliver against the huge need that exists right across the waterside. And it sends a very dangerous precedent, and it sows division. I want to look at the waterside as a whole. I want to welcome any investment under the waterside anywhere, but we're not going to be bullied into taking decisions that don't suit certain members of this chamber. Thanks, Mayor. Or Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Look, play park provision is desperately needed right across the district. I think we all acknowledge that. And in the Foylside DEA, Hazelbank became the agreed play park. And I'm very happy, because there's a huge need for a play park, or the play park that's there it's not what people need. People need a modern play park, and there's a huge community around there. But Coshquin is a smaller community, kind of on the margins of the city centre or the city, and they had campaigned very well for a play park. And as far back as before I was a councillor, council basically agreed with them and said, you deserve a play park, did the drawings up, did the designs up, and they're not in line to get a play park right now, unfortunately. And there's a lot of people in Coshquin who are not happy about this. And anybody that's a Foylside representative is going to have to go and explain that, whether they like it or not, and whether the people in Coshquin feel justified. And I'm sure that that's repeated right across the district, where we had multiple, if not many requests for play parks in different areas. And to be honest, every one of those requests is legitimate and valid, and we should be able to fund them all. So that's the first thing I would say. So it's not just that Tullyally's losing out here. I mean, there are many communities or many areas where they're not getting a play park and they actually deserve it. And it is going to cause some tensions. But there's a particular thing about Carrinear and Tullyally, and I've been in both areas working with people. My partner worked there for quite a while. I have a good sense of the needs of both areas. And both areas actually have similar needs. there was a situation 20 odd years ago where there was quite a bit of investment in the Tully Alley in terms of that Currynearn didn't have, and that the case for investment in the Currynearn has been massive, and that the residents of Currynearn campaigned for that, organised for that, did it through representative organisations, and so, you know, I'm glad that there's a plan to take Currynearn forward with a play park. That doesn't mean that Tully Alley doesn't deserve the same things, right? And because I know that what was brought in 20 years ago, it's not in the same shape that it's in today, right? So part of me is that I don't actually understand how Tully Alley wasn't the priority along with Currynearn in terms of the water side. And just to acknowledge the fact, look, we're talking about 2 play parks here for the water side, where all the other areas, to my understanding, are only getting 1. So there's already a step ahead there that people will say, well, why is that? And well, why is that? Well, it's because there has to be a carve up, and we have to, because of the nature of our society, we have to give one, for giving one to one side, we have to give one to the other. But I agree with Councillor Alderman Guy. We should actually be working in that area towards common play park, common football, and everybody who's there should be saying that's the direction of travel. And it's really, really sad that we haven't managed to do that. But I don't understand. And look, I'll be honest, right? The details for me and most other councillors in terms of the Waterside Partnership Group and all them different bodies, I'm lost, right? So the assignment of, like, you said this and I said that, I can't keep up with it. So I'm not, you know, it's just what I see, which is there's already 2 parks assigned to the water side. That's 1 more than what Foyleside's getting, 1 more than what the Moor is getting. And we could have been more up in arms about that, and probably should be. Do you know what I mean? And maybe we will end up more up in arms about that. But there is a dangerous dynamic to Currynearn and Tully Alley, which is why this is so serious. And I know that, like, because working class people in Tully Alley deserve the best, right? And I don't understand why Tully Alley wasn't, given we would know if there's going to be great and good investment in the Currynearn, how that might impact, just in terms of, like, the aesthetics of it or what people might say. So that has to be explained, why that was taken out of the equation. People in Ross Downey absolutely deserve a play park. I mean, and so the danger here is, look, working class areas are getting pitted against each other. That is what's happening here, and it's absolutely not fair on them, right? Because and so I just think that the way that this has come about, right, is, you know, I think for the DUP in particular, acknowledging that, like, each DEA is only getting 1 play park. The Waterside DEA is getting 2. You're now requesting 3, right? And I don't like, and it's not, but the dynamic around this particular.
Sir, I really don't want to stop the
up,
contribution,
Chair,
but can you start
if I
bringing
could
it
just
to a
finish
close?
up. The danger around this one is that I'm thinking now ahead into the summer, right? About, like, you know, we didn't get a play park because themans over there, the city side, didn't vote for us. When actually that's not what's happened here. I mean, it seems to me that, like, some councillors have dropped the ball in terms of representing Tully Alley in a situation where there's already been a kind of carve up, and the carve up has kind of collapsed here a wee bit. And I don't like to use the word carve up, but a lot of people looking at it go, that's what happens in our society. So look, like, for me, because I'm not over the details of the dynamics, I'm going to abstain on the proposal, right? I want to see the outcome of the equality report that Councillor Gallagher has asked for, questioned, and I think Councillor Jackson's offer was a fair one in terms of, like, if there's only funding for 2 parks, we need to look at that as a potential. I don't want to take anything away from Ross Downey, but I don't want to be blamed for Tully Alley not actually getting a play park when it sounds like that should have been thought about, and should have been that their case was there and then somehow went missing.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. I have a final speaker, Councillor Riley, online.
Thanks, Chair, for bringing me in. And just, I didn't intend to speak. Councillor Mooney obviously had outlined the SDLP position, but it was just to follow on from a point that Councillor Harkin had made. That's why I put my name in the chat box to come in. And I agree with him in respect of, what he said about his own DEA, about a play park provision in that patch for Coshoan that wasn't being fulfilled and the concerns that that had. I just make the point that in the waterside, there are other places beyond Corrynearn and Rossdowney and Tully Alley who don't have play provision, and the residents in those areas have also been on asking for provision to be made for their areas. Indeed, this time last year, we were dealing with correspondence from council officers about the removal of unsafe play equipment at Faughan Vale, for example, and there are other places across the waterside where provision had been there but had been taken away because it wasn't safe, it wasn't suitable. So for a proposal to have arrived in the way that it had in relation to putting in Tully Alley, with none of the consultation with the elected members across the waterside, as Councillor Mooney has outlined, having taken place, that's the driving reason why we weren't in a position to support the proposal that Alderman McMorris was bringing in, because there was no consultation with the elected members across the waterside in the way that there had been a number of years ago when we were taking decisions around putting in two provision places in the waterside when Ross Downey and Corrynearn came forward from the waterside councillors. All of the waterside councillors had the chance to sit in on those meetings. That didn't happen this time around, and I think that's exactly why we're in the position that we are now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Riley. Okay, members, we have a proposal on the floor from Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Duffy, and there isn't.
Sorry, can I ask, when I was speaking and during my presentation, I asked numerous questions that for officers to clarify. So maybe if some clarity could be given on that.
In a position to clarify those the answers to those questions. I'm happy if you wish to email them and we will answer them by email. But today I'm not content to clarify. I don't understand some of them and I can't provide information in respect of it today.
Okay, we will go to a vote on Councillor Jackson's proposal then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I'm just not quite sure who's still online or who's not here. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to run through all of the members. Alderman Cook.
Against.
Alderman Guy.
Against.
Alderman Hussey.
Against.
Alderman Carrigan.
Against, John.
Alderman McMorris.
Against.
Alderman Middleton.
Against.
Alderman Montgomery.
Against.
Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Lillian Barr. Councillor Boggs.
For.
Councillor Boyle.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Ta.
Councillor Cusick. Councillor Devine. Councillor Donnelly.
Abstain.
Councillor Alex Duffy.
Ta.
Councillor Sandra Duffy.
Ta.
Councillor Farrell.
Or.
Councillor Fleming.
Ta.
Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Harkin. Councillor Hart.
Ta.
Councillor Heaney. Councillor Hutton. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Leonard. Councillor Logue.
She's indicated in the chat that she's.
Councillor McDade. Councillor McGinley. Councillor McGowan. Councillor Mooney. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Norris. Councillor O'Farrell. Councillor Riley.
Or.
Councillor Tierney.
Or.
Councillor Neelis. Thank you, members. Oh, thank you.
John, Councillor Sinai Barr has also indicated for in the chat box if you must.
Okay, thank you.
43.
Pardon?
27 against, 3 abstentions.
So, Chair, we've recorded 24 for, 7 against, and 3 abstentions. So, the proposal is carried.
Just kind of
Phillips to confirm something.
Yeah, so members, just to confirm, that obviously the section 41(1)B call-in remains undetermined and won't be able to be determined for some time. Once we're able to get council's opinion, we'll bring a paper back in relation to that. In the meantime, the matter will be the subject of a quality screening, and any relevant information in relation to that will be brought forward to members as well.
Thank you, Philip. Members, that finishes with that item and we will conclude there until tomorrow. Thank you.